Yes, so I actually put higher here because the number of times I say morning to people and I'm not in mourning, or I say hello and I think that's got the word hell in it. I don't want that either. So I just thought I'd start with higher. Higher. And that is what higher means according to the dictionary. I thought, yeah, I like all those things, so I'm going to just get into the habit of saying higher every time. And in the bottom of each screen it says it's my Telegram group. I don't really do social media. I do lots of face-to-face. But if you want to connect on Telegram, that's my Telegram group, basically. Now, the other thing I've noticed as I wrote my presentation is that I can't get it to just bullet point one at a time, so it's going to bring every page up the whole way through every time, but it'll all make sense as we go through. Okay, so I actually want to start. We are talking about the Akashic Records today, and we are talking about You're a Miracle today. So the point of today is about the Akashic Records, but more importantly, I want you to go away today feeling like supercharged and pumped, because it's Lionsgate today. Apart from any other day of the year, which is amazing, and every day you're alive is a good day, it's also Lionsgate. I did a chiropractic course years ago, and we had to do cadaver work in Bournemouth. And we were running into it, so we spent a week working on cadavers in Bournemouth. And I was running into Bournemouth one day, and it was absolutely hammering down with rain. And my friend Sean, who was about in his 60s at the time, so he'd probably be in his 80s now, was just plodding along, smiling away. And I said, oh my God. I said, morning, Sean. He went, yeah. I said, it's a horrible day, isn't it? He said, every day you're alive is a good day. And I'm like, I need to go and chat to him at lunchtime, because that wasn't just a statement. He'd obviously put a lot of thought into that. So lunchtime, I caught up with him. I said, you said to me this morning, every day you're alive is a good day. Kind of felt like there was a bit of a story behind that. And he said he was one of 6 children, and there was a genetic thing in the family, and all of his 5 brothers and sisters were dead, and he was the last one left. So he said, every day you're alive is a good day. And I get goosebumps when I think about that. So yeah, so it is Lionsgate, but it's also another day. So what we're going to do to start with, and I'm going to take the mic off of this, I want to give you a really simple protect and ground 3 or 4 minute thing that you can do every day if you want to. All right, and everything about the Akashic Records, by the way, is about free will. So you don't have to do any of this, but if it resonates, you can. All right, so I'm going to take the microphone away and I'm going to talk you through it. If you want to take your shoes off and socks off, you're welcome to. You're going to sit to start with. Can you hear me all right? Okay. So really, 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 really simple one. I want you to just sit and I want you to rub your hands together. Close your eyes if you want to. And as you rub your hands together, I want you to just imagine, feel yourself drawing energy up from the centre of the earth. So it's going to come up through your feet, your legs, all the way up to your hips, up through your torso, fingers, arms, meeting at the shoulders, into your neck, all the way up into your head. Almost until you feel like your head's going to explode. There's that much charge in your body. Then you're going to take your hands and you're going to clear anything that doesn't serve you off your body and return it to source with love and light. Anything that's not 100% godlike, you're going to return to source. Touch the ground if you want to, call in your angels if you want to. You know who you work with. And now you're just going to sit in a really comfortable position and you're just going to draw in light. Healing light. So eventually it will feel like you're surrounded by an enormous egg of light. If you stretch your arms out to both sides, it's beyond that. So it's kind of stretching 20 inches above your head, all the way around you, under your feet. And you're just drawing in that light for 10, 20 seconds. And then when you're ready, just a little bit of gratitude for the day. Amazing. Brilliant. It doesn't take long to do that. but I think it's a nice one to do every day. I do it before every reading. We're going to do, it's quite an interactive day this morning, so we're going to do a few things like that. Okay, so a little bit about me. You don't need to read the slides, it's more for me to remember what I've got to talk about, to be honest. So this is what we're going to talk about this morning. A little bit about me, why you are a miracle and a creator. I'm going to prove that to you today. Then we're going to do a little bit about Lionsgate and the principal things that matter about Lionsgate. And I'm going to do a little bit of reading from my phone because I got a text through the other week and it just resonated so strongly. I thought I'm putting that in my presentation. But I don't like lots of slides with lots of writing on. Then we're going to go into the Akashic Records. So we're going to set a collective intention first. But while we're going through the records, I also want you to think about maybe a personal intention as well, because we're going to set a personal intention at the end too. And then we're going to talk about the Akashic Records and also why now is really important to have access to your Akashic Records. Just so that you know, every single person on the planet can access their Akashic Records at any point, at any time. So we'll talk about that, and maybe we'll cover that a little bit more in the workshop. And then we're going to set your intention, and then if there's any question and answers at the end, we'll have some questions and answers. All right? Perfect. So, a bit about me, how I came to the Akashic Records. Briefly up to a year ago, had an amazing life. When I was about 9, 2 parents that loved me, a lovely life. When I was about 9, I remember sitting on my bed in a house, and something said to me, "You're going to be okay." Now, I can't remember whether it was a physical voice in the room or a voice in my head, but it was unequivocal, and I just knew it was telling the truth. So I've kind of gone with that. So I suppose there's been that, like, lingering along in the background, but like I can't say a million things have happened to me over the years, but that was the one that I remember. So I had a good education, I went to a good school, I was bullied a bit, but that kind of shaped who I am, so I don't regret that at all. And actually, when you start to look at things in a bit more 5-dimensionally, you see that these are how you learn your lessons, which we'll talk about a little bit today, and you probably all know about already. Then I went to university, met my other half, who I had 2 amazing kids with, and then I decided I was kind of in the corporate world. I was working for Orange, and who became EE, who then became somebody else, and although the money was great, it just wasn't ticking boxes. I wasn't going home at night thinking, wow, I've made a difference today. And that's a bit ego-like, but it's just, it was all about the ego, not about the spirit, I suppose. So I decided to train as a chiropractor. I was chatting to a guy this morning who's near me, yes. So I went to McTimoney College and I studied McTimoney chiropractic specifically because it talks about the whole body. You don't just treat one bit, you treat everything. So that's kind of when the journey started, because I met some amazing people on that journey. And my patients taught me probably more than I ever taught them, to be honest. And then I did that for about 20 years until the whole COVID malarkey started. Let's leave the COVID malarkey at that. And the chiropractic college, I just had a feeling they were going to start talking about compulsory medical interventions. And every cell in my body says that you have free will. And actually, free will is another massive part of the Akashic Records. Today, you're going to take what resonates and you're going to leave everything else behind because you have free will. So I decided I kind of stopped calling myself a chiropractor. I deregistered. I became a musculoskeletal expert. I was still treating the same number of people. And then last year, I had a massive shock. My kids had left home, going off to do their own thing. And I just thought, I've never been into any drugs at all. No mushrooms, I don't take paracetamol, I've grown up homeopathically. But I just thought, okay, this is my chance. This is the start of the rest of my life. I feel like I've got another big adventure in me. Where do I want to start that adventure? And I wanted to start that adventure being way more soul-driven and way less ego-driven. So I said to Liam, my youngest son, adorable, what day did you go into the Navy? He said the 25th of September. So I looked on this website that tells you about ayahuasca retreats. And I put in the 25th, and there was 140 of them. I'm like, oh God, I'll wait for 140 ayahuasca retreats to pick the one. I haven't got a bloody clue. So I just put in start date, 25th of September 2024. How many popped up? Exactly. Had 140 reviews. That's where I went. About a week, 2 weeks later. And this ayahuasca retreat was insane. There were 2 ayahuasca ceremonies within that week. I don't know how many times I was sick that week. Actually, there was a kando ceremony as well. Has anybody ever done kando? That makes you sick too, doesn't it? I misinterpreted that and I thought it was a candle ceremony. So I'm like, oh, great, a candle ceremony. So, but I didn't figure out that it started at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is not a good time for candles. So I'm walking up to the tent thinking, oh, they're having a candle ceremony. That's going to be really cool. And then they said can down, the buckets were there, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sick again. Great. So anyway, so we had 2 ayahuasca ceremonies. Has anybody done ayahuasca, by the way? Okay. How many times have you done it? How many times have you done it?
Once was enough for me.
Well, did you do it twice in that week, or did you only do it once?
Just the once.
Okay. So the first one that I did was, I would say, challenging, amazing. I cleared 6 entities. One of them was really tough to get rid of. And then I was just totally exhausted. And I remember curling up inside this blanket that I dragged out of my tent. And the only thing that was sticking out was my toes. And the sun just started coming over the trees in front of me. And it touched my 2 big toes. And it just like re-energized me. And the sun just suddenly came out of my body. It was just magical. But yeah, that was quite challenging, but very interesting. Cleared a load of stuff. I definitely felt clearer. And the second one later that week, I just had a really good conversation with my soul. And I basically said, from this point forwards, my life is all about my soul's purpose and nothing else. So that's the soul, not ego thing. So that's how I came to the Akashic Records. Came back home and I thought, I don't want to just go back home and just carry on, because that would kind of waste what's just happened. So I decided that me and Chewy, the dog, would go off and do the NC 500 in Scotland. I was born in Scotland. And I've never really been back and properly explored it. So I took my camper van and we just went up in September up to Scotland and did the whole NC 500. And there were a couple of books that showed themselves to me off the shelf. And one of them is this book here, which is the Akashic Records by Linda Howe, which I've had for years, sitting on my shelf, not reading. And as I was reading it, as I was going around the NC 500, I just completely resonated. In fact, I think if I'd have read that book 5 years ago and put it down and thought, yeah, right, whatever, I wouldn't have taken it with me. But because I hadn't read it, I just thought, let's see what this thing about the Akashic Records is. And it said in the book, do your own first, and then if you resonate with it, just start reading other people's Akashic Records. Try and do as many as you can in a month. So I thought, okay, let's do that. And actually, that continued for about 10 months. I just didn't charge anybody for about 10 months. And that then took me on the Southwest Coast Path, which I did this year, which was also amazing. So I kind of feel I'm here now, and this is the start of the next stage of my life, which is all about the Akashic Records, but very much soul, not ego. So I've got 2 questions. This is about you being a miracle, every single one of you being a miracle. How many sperm does a man make in his lifetime? Several. Higher? Higher. Millions, yeah. Higher? Billions?
More than the stars in the sky.
How many stars are there in the sky?
More than we can count.
Okay, give me an estimate. I'll tell you if it's higher.
We're probably low trillion.
So it's less than that then.
Okay.
525 billion sperm a man will make in his lifetime. That's 9 noughts after a 525. That's a lot of kids, isn't it? Okay, so how many eggs is a woman born with, although that does change? How many eggs is a woman born with?
Assume the same sort of number.
No? 500? Any more? 1,000?
I don't know the number, but I do know that you're also born with your granddaughter's eggs as well.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I'll put grandmother up there, you said granddaughter, so yes, 100%. You're born with about 6 million, 5 to 6 million eggs, but by the time you reach puberty, you've got between about 300 and 400,000. And the grandmother thing is really fascinating. I didn't actually know you were born with your granddaughter's eggs, but if you think about it, every person in this room, their grandmother put your mother's eggs inside her when she grew you. So you are connected straight away. Every woman in this room is connected to 2 generations straight away. Your grandmother created your mum's eggs, your mum then grew you, and you've got your grandchildren's eggs inside you. So then in that case, you're talking about 5 generations. I just got goosebumps. That's really awesome. Yes.
Just to add to that, I worked out that's why the Jewish people believe that they're matrilineal right thing, which makes you think, how do they know that? Which is mind blowing in itself.
It is mind blowing, isn't it? Then you add the divine spark in, and I've got a little video, but I didn't want to make this presentation complicated. But if you want to see the divine spark, there was somebody that actually videoed the exact millisecond that the sperm broke through into the egg, and you see this tiny flash of light. There is a divine spark. Where does that come from?
On death, the same spark.
And on death. Okay, we talk about life and death too. Thank you. Remind me to talk about that later, because yes, make sure I say that too. So then you've got this divine spark. Where does that come from? I don't know. But it does show we're electrical, and it also shows we're light. And that is why I think light is so important to us. And that's also why I think our light is being modified in so many different ways. If you're out in nature in natural light, if you're allowed natural light because of the chemtrails, then just get out into nature. You know, screens have got blue light, it's no good for you. All the LED lights that are around us, no good for you. Incandescent lights, which are now being banned. You know, so just be really conscious that you are light, that you were created from light, and therefore think about light in your life if you're not adding it into your life. Now, that 1 in 176 million is your chances of winning the lottery, all right? Now, most people would say, I'm never going to win the lottery. So if you're never going to win the lottery, and if you won the lottery, it'd be like a miracle. Let me tell you then, that if you multiply 525 billion by 400,000, which is how many sperm it took in your dad's lifetime and how many eggs it took in your mum's lifetime to make you, it's 2.1 and 17 noughts. So honestly, you shouldn't be here. You are a miracle. It's insane. And that's 176 million, which is the chances of you winning the lottery. So you can see there's a lot more noughts on the end of that. So please, just know you are a miracle. Are we all right with that? Are you happy with that? Nice, okay. So the next thing I want to talk about, is there anybody that can douse in this? Oh, great. Can you do a douse for me? Would you mind? One of you coming up and helping me. Let me tell you what I'm going to suggest, and then if you want to do it, that would be amazing. Right. So you create energy, and we're going to do like a toroidal. We're going to get a sense of how a toroid works. Oh, great, we've got a dowser here. Nice. What's your name? Guy. April, nice to meet you. Coming in. Come up. Right. So I want to just prove that we can create. And I just wondered if there's anybody in this room that's had a bit of a mad week that could just sit here. And what I'd like you to do is douse their energy field. Is that possible?
Yep.
Right. Could I borrow somebody from the audience? Yeah? Coming up. Do you want to sit, or are you all right standing?
I don't mind.
Come and stand here. Okay. And what's your name, sweetheart?
Bree.
Bree.
Brianna.
Right, Brianna. So can you just think about the week you've just had, please? And then would you mind just dousing Brianna's energy? How far it comes away from her body? Okay, so we're talking about 3 metres? Okay, can I get you to face forward, Bree?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What I want you to do now is I want you to, all of you, I want you to send Bree love. Just pure love. We're going to do that for 10 seconds. Are you happy to douse Bree's energy again? Yeah, I think you're going to end up going a long way. I'd start walking in that direction if I were you. Don't trip over the tripod. Come back in a minute. We'll carry on without you. I saw this happen in a field once.
I got 20 paces.
Oh my God. Oh, you just doused it. Okay. Can you see though? Thank you. You can come back in if you want. Thank you so much. Brilliant. So we create. We don't even know we're creating. This is the fascinating thing, is I don't sometimes think we realise how much we create. And if love is this universal light, if it's this thing that we're heading towards, and you can send somebody love and you can make that much of a difference, it's epic. They reckon that if you send out love, you can actually feel it up to 5 miles away, which is amazing. So we're going to set some intentions later, but I just wanted you to know that you are also a creator, and we're going to do some toroidal work with our hearts a little bit later as well. So because it's 8-8 today in Lionsgate, I just turned 8 on its sides and made 2 infinities, because that's what we are. We're like 2 infinities, which is amazing. Well done. Thank you for that. Now, also, you are here now. So your life was created with 2 parents, 4 great-grandparents, and if you go down 10 generations, 1,024 people have had to live for you to be here today. And I probably should have multiplied the 2.1 and 17 noughts by 1,024 to then get the kind of scale of the ripple effect of the miracles. But you are here now, and this is a really important lesson I've learned in the last 10 months, is that we are actually, every single person I've spoken to is here now for a reason. So you aren't just 23 or 53 or 67, you are eternal, and you have literally been brought here now for a really specific reason. And most of the people that I speak to have got, I've got 2 amazing warriors. I've got a lady who is a samurai warrior. I had a lot of people that are in support roles, but it's all about the fact that the earth is changing, and I can tell you now it's not changing in a bad way, it's changing in a good way, but I don't want to give away the ending, so just trust me on that. So if you add all that up, 2,048 people have lived so that you could be here today. So that's why you're here now. I just want you to just be amazed at yourselves. Good, right, okay. So I'm going to do a bit of reading on this one, because Lionsgate, I'm not really into astrology and astronomy, and if Daniel's here, he's probably into it a lot more than I am. I kind of feel, though, there's only so many rabbit holes you can go down, isn't there? And I haven't really gone down the astronomy and astrology rabbit hole, but I do think that the reason we don't know anything about it is because it's really important. Because like anything we don't know about, I probably ought to know about, you know what I mean? And all the stuff I learnt at school is almost all completely useless, but hey. I want to tell you about these 5 planets, just very, very briefly. And I deliberately saved it at the end so I could find it dead quick. Okay. So, we're in Lionsgate, but we're also in 5 planets in retrograde at the moment, all right? And it's called, this is the soul star geometry. 5 planetary mirrors, 5 initiations, and you are at the centre of it. This isn't chaos, it's sacred maths. It's a countdown to everything false falling away and everything real finally locking in. So Pluto, this is where power meets reckoning. Pluto is not interested in comfort, it's interested in truth. If your life was built on control, survival, performance, or pretending, prepare for the demolition. Saturn. Saturn says, you want to live your dream? Then build it right. That's why we're going to set intentions. Neptune. Neptune is the mystic, the dreamer, the veil. But in retrograde, that veil gets ripped wide open. This is the moment where fantasy dies and clarity is born. If you've been escaping through stories, illusions, spiritual ego, or false hope, you're going to feel this one. Chiron. This is the wound speaking, not to reopen trauma, but to complete the healing cycle once and for all. And that comes back to the light thing we were talking about as well. Wounds let the light in, which is epic. And finally, Mercury retrograde, which I suppose is the one that kind of completes it, and that's the one that's kind of making today so special. Mercury in Leo says, your voice is sacred, your story matters, but are you telling the truth or are you still trying to be liked? This is the roaring pause. So there's absolutely shed loads happening at the moment, which is why I want to set our intentions. So this is the fivefold fire, purifying your path, your voice, your story, your power. Wonderful. That's what we're here for. So I think we should use that to set a collective intention this morning. And we're going to then do our individual intentions a little bit later, all right? So we've got the power, we've got the responsibility, we've got the truth, we've got the healing and the voice. That's coming to us from outside. Inside, we now know that we are miracles, and we now know that we are creators. So there's two things we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about the toroidal field. I've come to realise I haven't completely got it in enough detail to be able to explain to you about it because I'm not a quantum physicist. But I do know that I actually don't think time and space are anything like we've been taught they are, okay? And that things aren't really linear. And I brought this little thing along to show you about how layers work in reality. Just got to get my battery in the right way, because if I stuck it on the whole time, you'd be mesmerised by that. And okay, we'll talk about this a little bit later. I'm going to pop it here. It needs to be something flat. That will start to spin in a minute. We're not layered and we're not linear. We're cyclical and toroidal, and everything we interact with is like circles within circles within circles within circles. So actually, if you were going to take that another layer up, and you probably still wouldn't hit the spot, if you imagine all of those circles that are actually solid on that are in fact toroids, donuts, then you might even get a layer, again, a tiny little bit quite closer to how energy actually works, all right? So, yeah, and so that's why time and space isn't linear. That's why sometimes you'll think, did that only happen 2 weeks ago? It feels like ages ago. Or why something that happened a year ago just only seems like 3 minutes ago. It's just, time is not linear. And when you kind of embrace the fact that something will feel like it happened 6 months ago and it happened 2 minutes ago, then you just go with it, you'll notice it more, which is cool. Right, so what I'd like us to do is I want us to imagine, I'm going to put my microphone down again. So a toroid is just like an enormous donut, all right? And our hearts create toroidal fields. Your heart isn't a pump, by the way. Do you remember when we were kids and we used to light the fire and we used to have bellows to light the fire? It was the bellows that pumped, wasn't it? Well, that's your lungs. So your lungs are the pumps and your heart is the toroid. It's the energy creator. So we're going to just get this toroidal field working around us. And then I think I really like, if you don't mind, to just set an amazing intention out into the universe for peace. So we could just see how much we could affect one person today. We can affect millions and millions of people today, potentially. Okay, so you're going to sit again comfortably. Shoes and socks off if you want them off. Just get yourself into a really comfortable position. And if you want to close your eyes, you're welcome to close your eyes. This is going to come from your heart. It's a nice one to do if you're feeling a little bit down, is just to remind yourself of your toroidal field. So if you picture it almost like a big donut, the energy comes out of your toroid, your heart, and it comes up, comes over the top of your head, cascades down underneath you, and then it comes back up inside. And if you want to use your breathing at the same time, what I would suggest is, on your in-breath, you don't breathe through your lungs, you breathe into your heart and feel that toroid then come over your head, and as you breathe out, it's cascading down all the way around you, an enormous donut. And I just want you to feel that for a couple of minutes, please. You think that you can't breathe through your heart, and then you do it once and you realise it actually feels more natural to breathe in through your heart, I think. When you feel like you're in a flow, just raise a hand. So while we're in that flow, I just want you now to just radiate peace, however you want to say it. Don't put a knot in there though. You say, I want there to be no more evil. It doesn't hear the no. So you make it a positive one. More peace. More love. And you're just going to go into that flow too. So it's not just flowing out of you, it's flowing into you. Getting goosebumps. Brilliant, thank you so much. If you want to know more about this field, I would suggest you reading some, if you want to know more about this, I would suggest you look at some of Lynn McTaggart's stuff. Does everybody know about Lynn McTaggart? Yeah. She said that she's not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination. She was just a really good investigative journalist, and she wanted to understand about the quantum field. So she just started speaking to people that understood about quantum mechanics, and then she put it into English. She wrote the book The Field. But some of the cool stuff that's really happened is where they've been in war-torn areas, and again, some of you might know more about this than I do, they've actually had people that are consciously projecting peace into a really small block within a war-torn area, and they've noticed that the crime's gone down, and the killings have gone down, and the murder's gone down in just that tiny little block. So you can do this. You don't have to be there to do it. You can send it anywhere you like, and you can receive it from anywhere you like. So that was our collective intention today. That's amazing. Okay, shake off if you want to, or just stay in that zone if you want to. It's up to you. So, the Akashic Records. What are the Akashic Records? Shall I switch? Is this annoying anybody, or shall I leave it on? All right for me to leave it on? Okay. So the Akashic Records, in a nutshell, are the vibrational archive of your entire soul's existence since you were incepted. So I've had patients or clients, I have to get out of the habit of calling them patients. We probably are all slightly mad, but they're not chiropractic patients, they're clients. I have clients who have maybe only incarnated maybe 200 times. I've had some clients that have incarnated up to 800 times. And that's their Akashic Records, Book of Life. There's lots of ancient texts that refer to the Akashic Records. They sometimes call it the Book of Life. Will exist for that whole person's soul's journey. And it's effectively the archive of everything you've said, been, done, achieved in all of those incarnations. And it's a truthful record. And we'll come on to truth a little bit later. And that's actually how I got drawn into picking up that book, actually, because I'd gone on this ayahuasca retreat, and then I came back and I thought, right, I just would like to know the truth. I don't necessarily need to have the answers to everything. I just want to know that what I'm learning is truthful. And I think that's why that book kind of leapt off the bookshelf too, because it's like, well, we can only tell you the truth. Although it's quite interesting, because within the Akashic Records, depending on where you are, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, your truth can change. So if you have an Akashic Record reading and you're really in that physical plane, the Akashic reading that you have will be quite physical. But if you are transcending everything and you're up in 5D, and it was the same person and we were doing that reading 6 months, 12 months, 2 years later, but you've ascended in that time, then your reading the second time will be totally different, even though it's still the truth, because you are on a different wavelength. So they can change, but they're still always the truth. Does that make sense? Cool. Where are they stored? Well, as I said, you can access them from anywhere, anytime, because they're a vibrational frequency. So I don't actually know where they're stored, but they are just all around us, basically. And I think I will talk about this in the workshop, how you can access the Akashic Records. We'll talk about it a little bit today too. We'll have a play with it if you want as well. And whose records can be read? Well, most people would imagine that it's a person that's records that can be read. We're not allowed to read anybody who would be considered a minor. Their records, you don't read anybody's records until they're about 16, partly because they have so much learning and growing still to do. But if you were an adult having your records read, you could ask about a minor or somebody that you are connected to. You can only read somebody's records who gives you permission to read their records. And so you can also read your pet's records. I've never done that, but you can. So you can ask if your pet is all right, if it's poorly or whatever, you can ask about your pet. And actually I was reading Linda Howe's book last night actually, and if you ask your pet for permission, your pet will actually give you an answer. It might walk away and leave the room, in which case that's a definite no. But if it holds your gaze for just a few seconds, then that is permission for you to read their records. You can also read the records of a house. You can read the records of a monument. There are Akashic records related to every kind of entity in existence, basic physical entity on this physical plane. And I haven't done any of that either. Mostly, well, it's always just been people. Now, entities within the Akashic Records, there are loads, but the ones that I come across most frequently, you've got your keepers of the light, keepers of the records. They face away from us. The keepers of the light, they're not kind of customer facing. They've never incarnated as human, and their job is to keep the records true. But also, their job is to pull out the record that is most relevant to your question in such a way as to help you ascend, help your soul to ascend. So you think about if you've lived 800 times, I have no idea if you stuck that on a hard drive, how many hard drives you'd need to store absolutely everything you've ever done in those 800 lives. But the keepers of the light, they will go directly to the record. They'll pull out the bit that's relevant to help move you forwards, and then they'll come back and give you an answer. Sometimes they'll answer a question with a question, but most of the times they'll give you a bit of an answer. Then you've got the customer-facing entities, who are your masters and your teachers and your loved ones. MTLOs you'll often see. If ever you read anything to do with the Akashic Records, you'll see MTOLs, masters, teachers and loved ones, LOs. Your masters have also never incarnated as human, and they have been with you since your soul was incepted. So you might know yourself as Dan or George or whatever you know yourself as, but they know you as everything you've ever been, which is like super cool. So you might think you're not good at something, but actually they'll tell you that you are good at something, and you have been good at something. I started to learn to fly earlier this year. I'm doing a microlight course at the moment. And so earlier in the year, I've been wanting to do this for 50 years nearly, 48 years I've wanted to learn to fly. And so I asked my Akashic Records if I've ever been a pilot before, and I have. I was a pilot in the First World War, shot down and killed during the war. And I have the guy's name, and I did it in January, so I can't remember his name. I ought to really. And I then asked him if he would mind just transferring some of his knowledge to me, and he said, no, that's fine, because you can actually create a bridge between you and a previous incarnation of you. And I definitely feel like this whole pilot thing is going terribly well at the moment. I'm on landings though. They say to you, you've always got the option of taking off, but you've never got the option of landing. So don't take off unless you're completely sure you can land, and I get that now. So yeah, so those are your martyrs, and they've been with you your every soul's incarnation. You've then got teachers, and your teachers will be with you for a lesson. So for example, we talk a little bit about life between lives as well. If you choose in this life that you're going to learn unconditional love, then you might take 2 or 3 lifetimes to do that. And the example that actually Linda gives in the book again is, so you come back as the first time you come round on this path of learning unconditional love, you might come as a tramp on the street, you've got nothing. And this multi-millionaire walks past you every morning on his way to work. And he's actually in your soul group, and he wants to learn unconditional love too. But not until you connect will that start to happen. And then what you might find is your second incarnation in that lesson, you come back as a multi-millionaire and he comes back as the tramp. And this to me explains, I'm getting goosebumps again, this to me explains a lot why some people feel like they have a really tough life. It's because your Akashic Records or the people around you that love you, the entities around that love you, are going to teach you that lesson to the best of their ability, and it's not always going to be an easy ride. And actually, probably a lot of us are here today because we've had a really bumpy ride, and that's what actually started us on our path that brought us here. So lessons are lessons, aren't they? And we're starting to talk about the 5D stuff as well. So your teachers may have incarnated as human. And I occasionally speak to people who are at that point where they've had pretty much all the lives they're going to have, and then they're going to get a choice whether they do come back as human and live that life again, or whether they actually start to ascend. And I've had a couple of people where, they're probably going to get to choose in the next lifetime or 2. And then your loved ones are people that have known you in your lifetime, in this lifetime, but they're not here anymore. And this is where we talk a little bit about life between lives. Does anybody know about the life between lives? Yeah, so his name's gone out of my head, but it'll come back to me.
Sorensen or something?
Yes, Sorensen's one of them. It's in this book here, actually, so I'll stick something on my group later. But basically, Michael, what's his surname? He was the life between lives guy, and he basically used to regress people into their life between lives. And then this chap here that's written the book, Ian Lawton, has pulled together all that information from him, from Dolores Cannon. She didn't specifically look at life between lives, but quite often she'd have a conversation with people and they would go into their life between lives. And about half a dozen other people who have specifically had, detailed information about their life between lives. And he's just done a compare and contrast. And what he's come up with is the fact, and this is the life and death thing, the most traumatic experience in your life will be birth. And I think that's probably why we're kicking and screaming when we're brought back into this world, because you're leaving your soul group behind to come to a planet where everybody's vibrating at different frequencies. You're not in your soul group necessarily when you come to this planet. You're around all sorts of other people, but you've left your soul group. Come to this planet kicking and screaming. You've chosen to do it. And then when you die, you're going back to your soul group again. So it's that wonderful release at the end, because you're going back into your soul group. And the other thing that happens within that life between lives, and I don't know whether you walk into the light or not. I didn't get to answer that question because I know there's 2 schools of thought as well. But the other thing that happens in your life between lives is your masters, teachers and loved ones are around. All the creatures that want to nurture you in your next ascension are around you, but you will be your own worst critic. They only ever love you, but you'll be like, didn't like that about my last life. I want to do that differently. I want to go back and learn that. And you'll sit in that life between lives for sometimes days, sometimes minutes, sometimes years before you reincarnate again and either continue on that lesson that you wanted to learn. Not working?
Just gone to...
That's fine. Fingerprint. You haven't got my fingerprint, have you? Damn it, I'll take my finger off and then you can have it. So that's the life between lives bit. And while it's the access to all of your past stuff and all of your present stuff, and by the way, now is the only eternal time. Now is eternal. The past has gone, the future hasn't happened, but now is actually eternal. It's way bigger than you actually realise. It's the future threads, your future possibilities and your future probabilities. So it will never tell you exactly what's going to happen coming up in the future. It'll have a rough idea, but it will never tell you what to do because you have free will. And there's a couple of other laws that we'll talk about, but free will is one of them, most definitely. So that's what the Akashic Records are. We've talked a little bit, we've done some spiral energy today. We've talked about how spiral energy works. Nothing really about nature is particularly linear. It's mostly spiral. The Fibonacci sequence will tell you that as well. And there's lots and lots of spirals, not so many straight things as things are created. But very, very briefly, and we touched on this earlier, you've got kind of three main planes of existence. You've got the physical, mental and emotional planes of existence. And the physical plane is where you can actually create something physical, but it's still quite a high density, low vibrational plane. So your vibrations are going higher as you're moving down, physical, mental, emotional into the quantum. You're vibrating at a totally different level when you're on a quantum frequency. But physical, we have chosen to come back as physical bodies, so we are in the physical body at this point. But an example for me of being able to create in the physical, it's not a particularly positive example, but it was just so glaring to me that it always stays with me. I had a friend once, very entrepreneurial lady, and she had decided to create this new group. And she sat down at a table in Colliford in Devon. She's describing the table to me one day. I bumped into her and she was looking really depressed, and I didn't know why, because she's not that kind to be depressed. And she was sitting around this table with three other women, and they created this concept that just went absolutely ballistic, okay? And she was feeling down this particular day because she said to me, do you remember I told you we all sat around that table that day and we created blah, 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 blah? I'm like, yeah. She said, well, all other three girls on that table have all had breast cancer. I'm like, right, yeah. And it was like, it just hung in the air. I'm like, Lisa, what does that mean? And doesn't that therefore mean that you're less likely to get breast cancer because not 100% of the population gets breast cancer? I know what she's saying to me, but I'm not gonna go down that route. Guess what happened to her within 12 months?
She brought it on.
I know, she created breast cancer. She wasn't unhealthy, she didn't eat unhealthily. I know she created that breast cancer, and she's come through it. She had really long dark hair, and then she had to go and all her hair dropped out. She still looked beautiful. She's come out the other side. But even though I said to her, Lisa, you've created that breast cancer, she probably wouldn't believe me, which isn't, so it's not for me to say anyway, is it? But that's how you can manifest in the physical. You definitely can. Have I put the law of correspondence here as well? So the law of correspondence is what you put out will get reflected back to you. This definitely also happens in the Akashic Records. So if you're giving out that, well, that's what she was giving out. I'm scared of breast cancer. I know I'm going to get breast cancer because the other three girls at the table got it. That's what came back. The law of correspondence cut in, and the next minute she's got breast cancer. So the mental and emotional planes are pretty much as you would imagine, but the more interesting thing for me about the mental and emotional planes is that they're actually collective. So you can be influenced on the mental and emotional levels by the collective. And my example of this would be at the moment, this absolute unremitting news that's trying to pull us into World War III. I'm not going into World War III. I'm just not doing it. World War III is not on my radar. And I actually don't think it's on many, many, many people's radar, which is why they're trying so hard to try and convince us, because they know that they can't pull us into World War III unless the population accepts it. Well, I don't, and we are not going into World War III. And I listened to a 40-minute podcast by a lady who's one of the Pleiadians yesterday, and she also said we're not going into World War III. This is the end of this is the animal kicking and screaming in its death throes, but it's going to keep telling us that it wants us to create World War III. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. But that works on the mental and emotional levels. So you can be influenced mentally and emotionally yourself, but you can also be influenced by the collective. So just be aware of that, okay? And then you go into the quantum level. So the quantum level, there's no time, there's no space. This is where quantum healing occurs. And I'm only just diving into this a little bit myself. So most of my readings up to now have been kind of physical, mental, emotional, but they're starting to become more quantum as I'm practicing. And what happens really with quantum healing in the Akashic Records is you'll go back to a trigger that might have rippled through multiple lives, and you'll just analyse that trigger and you'll clear that trigger at that point and you'll let it ripple through. Because time doesn't exist. So you can change the Akashic Records moving forwards, if you're going to use a linear example, because time actually doesn't exist in the quantum field. Everything existed. So you switch to a different timeline. So that's how I'm working more. And the reason I've put observe and pray is because you might know from the double slit experiment, and if you don't know, it's really worth reading about, that an atom will behave differently when you observe it than it will if nobody's watching it. If nothing else, that tells you that you are interacting with that molecule. And if you're interacting with one molecule, I can tell you you're interacting with all molecules. And the pray thing is really interesting because there's a chap, a Texan guy, he's got a Texan hat, and I tried to find his name this morning, I couldn't find it. He spent 20 or 30 years looking at the vibrational frequency of corporations and companies, and then emotions. And he's basically worked out that the highest emotion that you vibrate at, it's beyond love, it's integrity, basically. That's your highest intention, and that's when you vibrate the most, and that's when you can influence the most people. So you think about Gandhi. I don't know whether Gandhi was a nice man or not, but I certainly knew one little man changed the world because he set his intentions, and he didn't ever change how he felt about stuff. You know, he brought down the British Empire, I think, which is pretty cool, possibly. So yes, and prayer, even if you pray over your food and thank your food, it will change the he actually physically proved that if you pray over your food, it changes the frequency of that food. So the power of prayer and the power of observation are really, really important in that kind of quantum field. And then don't forget about the law of correspondence, which is what you get out, you put back. So if, for example, you've had a really awful relationship with people in the past, and you're then looking for a nicer relationship, if you carry that baggage through with you of your bad relationships and all those little triggers that come through, you are going to project them into your next relationship. You've got to clear it out first to move forwards, okay? So, where healing occurs within the Akashic Records, it actually just occurs. Your Akashic Records are there to help you to heal. So you can actually surrender to the Akashic Records. And this has only kind of become known to me really over the last few weeks when I've realised what shift people have after they've had their records done. And that's because their whole purpose is to heal you. So they just get on with it while you're having your readings, and you'll notice a shift from there. But I would say, if you have a reading, look out for little hints and tips afterwards. You might see stuff around you that didn't see you before, which makes you think, oh, okay, that's come from that reading or whatever. And I always say to people, kind of look out. So why are the Akashic Records important now? One, because they only tell the truth. If you really want to know the truth, the Akashic Records are an amazing tool to help you do that, okay? Knowledge is really fascinating too. My knowledge of world history has just gone nuts since I started reading people's Akashic Records. Like, for example, the samurai lady. I read this lady, she was a friend of mine actually, and she was the first friend that I read for, and I thought, should you be reading for friends? Because, you know, you kind of already know them. Have you got any misconceived preconceptions or whatever? So I read for this lady, Tracy, and it came up that she was an Akashic warrior, a samurai warrior. And in my head, as I'm doing the reading, I'm picturing her as a male Akashic samurai warrior. But when we asked how she actually died in childbirth. So she was a female samurai warrior. I didn't even know female samurai warriors existed, so I had to Google it afterwards, and sure enough they did. They were amazing. So I get to learn a load of really nice stuff about what's come in the past, which is quite different to what I anticipated from reading the Akashic Records, and you get to know a little bit more about yourself if you want. The creation thing's really important because it's kind of validation as well. It's the fact that you can change your timelines to a certain extent by quantumly removing a trigger that has then triggered you through multiple lifetimes. So in a way you're kind of creating, but quite often what I find is that it's validating, particularly within the circle that I kind of mix in, because they're all, I would say, relatively awake anyway. So that validation of actually, yes, that's what I thought I was here for, but it just gives you that power to kind of step into it, so you just become that like lion. And if any of you have, and I was chatting to a guy whose records I read yesterday, and he said he's just woken up feeling completely different today. I don't think I told him anything he didn't already know, but he just feels like super empowered today, which is exactly what I like. The healing that occurs anyway within the Akashic Records, which is lovely, and the fact that there's now no fear. Because you can't be killed. Bring it on, whatever. You can't kill me because my soul is eternal. I definitely know that now. So that kind of gives you the power to just be who you're supposed to be. We can take you back to the 1.2.1 and 17 zeros if you want me to tell you that you're a miracle again, that's why you're here now. You're here now to be you. So you've got to be you. You can't be anybody else. And that eternal connection kind of it just draws you towards your highest good, which is another thing I think really, really comes out of the Akashic Records. Okay. So, how are we doing for time?
Now.
Perfect, that'll do for me. Brilliant. Right, what happens in a typical reading when you come for a reading with me? And they're probably all different. Do you know what? I haven't had any formal training, and a little bit of me doesn't want to go for formal training, because I kind of like that concept of, who was it that invented the light bulb? What was his name? Edison. And Edison, and then there was another chap who...
Sorry, can I just say, you haven't had any human training, but you've had your spiritual guides. You have had training.
Yes.
You just haven't had a piece of paper with a human.
I agree. Yes, thank you. Absolutely right. But the thing, and there's another reason why, yeah, no, I would agree with that, is because I think sometimes human training gets you to think inside the box, and I don't want to think inside the box. I actually don't want there to be a box. And I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was the guy that Edison who invented the light bulb. I think it might have been, and if it isn't, you'll know the story. But went to school as a young child, and he got to school, and a couple of days later his teacher sent him home with a letter. And his mum opens the letter and glances at the letter and says to him, okay, school have basically said that you're far too intelligent for school, so you're not going to go back there again. Shuts the letter, never sees the letter again. Goes on to have the most incredible life, invents things which are still affecting us and have shaped our world. It wasn't Tesla, I think it was Edison. His mum dies, doesn't think anything of it. Years later, he finds the letter inside his book. And the letter inside the book says, your son is an absolute idiot. Do not send him to school again. And that really resonated with me. So I just decided, actually, I'm gonna get to a point where I feel, okay, I feel like this is as far as I'm going to go. Maybe I'll go for some learning, but I'm not at that point yet. I'm just letting it flow, I think. So typical reading with me, I'll use the opening prayer that Linda Howe channeled 20 plus years ago, which takes us into the Akashic Records. When you're in the Akashic Records, the only thing you really notice is you go into like a really peaceful shift. You can feel yourself shift into that peaceful shift, and then you know you're in the records. And it's the vibrational frequency of your spoken full name that takes us into the vibrational archive of your book of life. So we have to have permission, and we have to have your name to get into the Akashic Records. And then once I've got into the Akashic Records, I tell you. And then the second thing I do is I then ask for opening remarks. There's a lady called Maureen Saint Germain. She's been in the Akashic Records for years and years and years. She does a lot of entity clearances, and so there's videos on my Telegram group about how you can clear entities. And she always asks for opening remarks, because most people that come to me for an Akashic reading, they've had to wait a couple of weeks to do it, or longer. And so your masters and your teachers and your loved ones, they've got stuff they actually want to tell you first before you start asking questions. So I'll ask for opening remarks, and some opening remarks will come through, and then I feed those through to the client, and we can dive into those in a bit more detail if you like. And then from there we then can start asking questions, and it kind of flows from there basically. Takes about 3/4 of an hour to an hour. So a lot of the kind of physical, mental, emotional, quantum healing that occurs will kind of partly occur because you are in the physical, mental, emotional, quantum plane. So it very much mirrors, and I think part of the reason for that is because if you're in a physical day and they're trying to give you quantum information, it's just going to be absolutely useless. So this is again where the keepers of the light, the keepers of the records would select that knowledge from that particular day to help you move forwards. So there's an element of the physical, mental, emotional and quantum in it. And don't forget you've always got free will. And as I said to you earlier, what happens is then you have a shift. So don't underestimate the shift, I would say. So you'll leave me after 3/4 of an hour to an hour, and that's kind of when the magic starts to happen. It's super cool. Right, so what I have witnessed so far, we're getting to the end now, and then we've got questions and answers if you want them. What we've witnessed, we're going to set your intentions too, so have a think about your intentions. You're definitely here now for a reason. There is no doubt in my mind, every single person I've spoken to is here now for a reason. And that's why we talked a little bit earlier about why you have to be you. All of those 2,048 people in your last 10, grandparents beyond have lived and died to bring you here now. You've got to be you, all right? This is a really magical time to be alive. It's scary at times. Very exciting at times, no doubt about it's magical. There is nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. They can't actually hurt your soul. And in fact, I think part of the stuff that's kept us here in this fear pattern that they're trying to kind of just keep circling and circling around is the fact that we're just not being ourselves. We're letting them do what they want to us and we're not stepping into our power. If everybody at the start said, nope, not doing that, doesn't resonate, we would have been out of this on the 20th of March 2020, with like 2 days after the original first lockdown. The other thing that's really important about is about this quantum pain being a lesson. When you're 5-dimensional, you don't really see the little bits of pain that brought you to this point. You can actually look down on them. And which book was it? There was a book that I read, and I might be getting this story slightly wrong, but it culminated, and also I'm not entirely sure whether the Holocaust existed, but still the story just really, really resonated with me. I wasn't sure if the Holocaust existed when I read the story, but it still resonated. So this chap is life between lives. This chap goes for a reading. He's got loads of stuff happening in his life that he can't explain, and he goes to see Michael Newton, who's the life between lives person. I knew that would come back. Michael Newton, he's the original pioneer. So Michael Newton takes him back to a life where he's a 7-year-old European boy with a 4-year-old sister, and his parents have been taken from him during the war, and so it's just him and his sister, and they get moved to a camp. And he's only 7, but he decides that he's going to try his hardest to look after all the children in this camp. And he can't understand why the guards are so cruel. They're not feeding them, they don't have clothes, they're really cold. He decides to still be this person in this camp looking after the kids. And they've made the decision that if they get sent to the showers, they're going to breathe in these fumes as fast as they possibly can, all right? So they get sent to the showers, and he's made friends with this other little girl as well. And they get sent to the showers, and they're breathing in the gas in the showers, and he remembers thinking at the time that he was so grateful he died at the same second his sister died at, okay? So he's now gone 7 and 4. Now, in the camp, there was one guard who showed even like a flicker of something. He just felt like this guard was kind of regretting what he was doing, but he was still doing it anyway. And it turned out that this guard had then incarnated as his father in this life. And the point of his father being the guard was to show him that you should not just do what you're told to do. You have to do what feels right. And I just remember thinking, what a story. How absolutely awful this 7-year-old got murdered, but actually it had come full circle in multiple lifetimes since. And that for me just cemented the fact that you might not have an easy ride, but you're probably going to learn the lesson that you've chosen to learn. And it's almost like you choose that lesson and then the universe chooses how you learn it if you just leave it to the universe. So don't be afraid of the hard times, because quite often they've got a really, really important spiritual significance. And then, as I say, a lot of it for my clients is empowerment. They can step into that power. They kind of already have a really good clue who they are, but now they can step into it and be that person. It validates them. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the law of correspondence. And I want this to be another thing that really sinks in today. If you're sending out mixed signals, if you want something, but what you're actually sending out is mixed signals, you're going to get those mixed signals back. So just be really clear about what you want from a relationship, what you want from a house even, you know, something, anything you want, because we're going to come on to intentions. Just want you to be really clear about it. So that's what I've witnessed in the last 12 months. So I think it's time to set your personal intentions now. You can set as many as you like, but I would probably think of one. Something that you want to happen in the next 6 to 12 months maybe. Or you might have a way bigger intention where you want to be in the end. And what I want you to do is I want you to really flesh it out. So we're going to do this quite quietly. So if, for example, it was a house, I actually want you to walk into that house. I want you to walk yourself around that house and see all the things you like within that house. If it's a relationship, I want you to interact with that person in a way that you know brings the best of you and the best of them out. You know, your favourite relationships. So has everybody got an intention? Put your hands up if you've got an intention, then I'm going to just shut up. If you haven't got an intention, can you just do peace again? Just send out peace? Okay, I'm going to put my microphone down. So I'm giving you a couple of minutes to set your intentions. Make them amazing, by the way, because the universe can create anything you want. Then when you've finished, I want you to hold that intention. I want you to just hold on to it. Just pause it for a second. And then we're going to go back into our toroid. So I want you to sit comfortably again. Create that amazing toroid that we created earlier from your heart, coming up through your head, cascading all the way down that donut all around us, coming from your heart. And then when you're ready, you're going to drop that intention into the toroid and you're just going to allow it to just filter out into the universe. With love. should take a picture of you now because you've got such beautiful looks on your faces, like peaceful, happy, smiley. So pretty. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes. Come back into the room. Dr. Cam talks about group meditations being like way more powerful than individual meditations. So I wonder whether that's, I definitely feel something's happening today. It's amazing. Right, that's pretty much me done. So we've talked about why you are a miracle and a creator. I can't emphasise that enough. We set a collective intention of peace on Lionsgate and why Lionsgate is so powerful. We talked a little bit about the Akashic Records. We talked about why now is a really good time to learn how to access your Akashic Records or see somebody that can actually help you with your Akashic Records. My Telegram group is actually not a discussion group. It's just the group of where everything that I've learned I put into that Telegram group, and everything that resonates goes into the Telegram group. So it's more of an information resource than actually a discussion group. And then we've just set your intention. And if you have time and your intention comes, when your intention comes to fruition, I would really like to know about it, please. So before I leave you with love and gratitude, are there any questions? 10-second pause, 4 hands go up.
I've got a question. What do you know about the black box of Saturn and how it's keeping us in that reincarnation loop? Is that, it's just something that I've heard about and I have no idea what it is or if it's important.
I don't know anything about the black box of Saturn, but the loop thing, Maureen Saint Germain channeled a channel from, so there's 2 other entities that I didn't talk about. One of them is the Great Divine Director, who's like the right hand of God, and the other one is this Lord Metatron, who kind of keeps the matrix and holds us within the matrix. And the Great Divine Director channeled a message through Maureen Saint Germain in 2017, which said there is actually no more karma, because karma keeps you in a loop. What goes around comes around, keeps you in a loop. And he said there's no more karma. Karma's just a game. And actually also, if time and space doesn't exist, there can't be karma, because stuff can't come back around again if there's no time. What you did in the past can't possibly influence necessarily what's happening in the future if there is no time. All there is now is love. So that doesn't answer your question, but the loop thing I found really interesting. There is no more karma. There is just love, unconditional love.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Oh, the lady behind you. Oh yeah, go on. Go.
Well, from that perspective, does that mean that is this our last incarnation? If karma is non-existent, then wouldn't there be a shift in another dimensional shift based on that?
But you yourself can shift dimensionally, but you have chosen to come back in the physical level now, but your soul is vibrating at every level. So it depends. If quantum you was coming to see me, you wouldn't, yes is the answer, but the physical you at the moment has come back, because every time you choose to come back into this life, into a life, what's happening is they're constantly pulling you towards that ultimate divine light, that oneness where we'll actually be back with source, basically creation.
And
but you could, yeah, go on.
Do you have a workshop?
Apparently, yes. When I was filling out the things yesterday, it turns out I do have a workshop, but I can't tell you when it is. And what we're going to talk about is we'll actually have a go at going into the Akashic Records during that workshop, because I really want people to understand how easy it is to do, so that you can then start asking questions when you want the truth. So yes, so the free will thing is a natural law, but the looking into the future thing, so I think you came in a little bit later actually, so what we talked about is the fact that the Akashic Records are the vibrational archive of your entire soul's existence, past and present up to now, but they are the threads of your future possibility and future probability, because you always have free will. So they will never tell you what's going to happen in the future, But if you ask a question, so I try and frame questions. If somebody says, right, am I going to win the lottery? I'm just dragging the question out of nowhere. My question would actually be, are there any things that I could work on so that I could win the lottery? So then they'll give you information as to what things how you can learn, how you can grow in the future to take you down that path, but they won't say, yes, it's definitely going to happen, basically. Because you can always choose what you want to do. You can ignore everything we've said today, totally 100% fine. The Akashic Records only ever see you as perfect. And that's the other thing, that's the other quantum thing, is quantumly you are perfect. Your soul is perfect. But on the physical, mental and emotional plane, we don't consider ourselves as perfect, but actually we are. So it's kind of about levels of reality within that, I suppose, a little bit.
I think I was thinking more, if you see a window, so you can see you see things, and they come to fruition, exactly what it is. And it could be the most biggest lottery winning, it could be anything. But when you see stuff, it's so defined, you know.
Then you know. I was 9, and I was told I'd always be okay, and I knew, yes.
That's a prediction of the future.
It is. It's a future possibility and future probability.
Yeah, only a probability.
Yeah.
Is the workshop experiential? I mean, are
Yes.
you going to try to,
Yes. Yes.
to get to our
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. I think that's what a workshop should be doing. Any other questions? Amazing. Well, thank you very, very much for your time, and I shall see you when I see you, I'm sure.